Good afternoon. We're back in session, continuing with item 6, the strategic planning session. Since we're coming back from lunch, we're going to reestablish quorum. So Christina, would you call the roll?
Becca Thies,
Present.
Eleanor Uribe,
Present.
Justin Huff,
Present.
Kelly Ranasinghe,
Present.
Wendy Strack,
Present.
Dr. Nicholas Boyd,
Present.
John Sovek,
Here.
Dr. Annette Walker,
Present.
Lorez Bailey.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And we'll turn it back over to you two, but I know, and I think maybe some board members have shared this as well, but just universally over lunch, we're just excited and grateful for you to be here and thankful for all of the support you're offering us. And you guys are doing a great job walking us through this. I know some of these are difficult topics, but we just appreciate your time and thoughtfulness and your support on this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so as you can see, the next goal area is licensing. Licensing statement, establish licensing standards to protect consumers and allow reasonable and timely access to the profession. If you have the environmental scan and you're following along, it's on pages 10 to 15 where you'll find the summary, but we also have a summary slide of the weaknesses. And so those green check marks just represent items that have been addressed by objectives already suggested by board staff, and you'll get a chance to look at them just like you did in the previous goal area. All right, so here we have the board staff's suggested objectives, starting with the first one. Develop and enhance online tools and guidance documents to support applicants and registrants in navigating the licensure pathway. And we had a suggestion for wording that a little differently, and that is improve website tools and resources to support applicants and registrants. So just another way to say the same thing. You can just let us know if you have a preference or if you have something new to add.
Could you lean a little closer into your microphone?
Sorry, is that better? Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for pointing that out. All right, so Sarah has typed an alternate way to word objective 2.1. Let us know what you think, or if you'd like to add verbiage of your own.
Go ahead.
So in looking at understanding when we're using websites, there are certain requirements of how the state does websites and the templates they use. Is this also going to be able to include some of the legally required ADA accessibility information? And should we be putting that in this idea of improving the website to include that kind of compliance?
Okay.
I don't know if we're required or if it's already built
We
into
are
the
required.
templates they're using.
We are required to have ADA, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. And then in the same development question, since we are trying to look at diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility conversations, is part of that improving the website also, do we need to put that in there as improved website tools and resources, embracing diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility? Because we might want to start looking at having multiple language sources on there. We might want to look at creating, looking at font sizes, things like that, that would include that. So is that something that should be put in there specifically to talk about including that in the website development?
John, but Steve, before you jump in, I kind of was thinking about this over lunch, just in general. It seems like we have a, universal desire to see the DIA principles integrated into the language throughout these objectives. And so would it be easier, for the sake of time today, to just sort of provide a single direction of we want that lens to be used to revise all of the language in this document so that it reflects that lens and that focus that the board wants to see. So then we're not sort of wordsmithing through the rest of the document, or I just trying to think for the sake of time, if there's sort of a universal desire to see that lens applied across the document, if that would make things simpler today, but just throwing that out there, food for thought.
And I will say that what we're doing today is a draft, and you will see it again and have the opportunity to make changes before you approve it. So just know that as well.
So is our chair's suggestion that this would become the lens with which all of these objectives are written would then be reframed into that, or is providing specific guidance right now going to keep us more on track?
Well, I'm sorry, a little brain fade there. I'm like, what was I going to say? I like what Wendy said. And what we could do possibly is, and I think it actually, I don't know if it was in the last strategic plan, but have that as like I'm going back to the thing of saying it's like a guiding principle of here's our strategic plan, mission, vision, and this is what our actions on this strategic plan are going to take into account to ensure that we're looking at all these with a certain lens.
May I respond?
Yes. Oh,
So question then for your side of the organization, we came in after the last set of strategic plans and actually had an entire session where we went through every objective and rewrote them to include diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility wasn't on the board at that time, but we also did that. So we were asked, we held a special session to rewrite the previous goals to include that specific language. So if we were doing it then, and these are our framework questions and it's not here, I'm not comfortable saying, well, we have an overarching intention to include this. I think that's kind of a coulda, shoulda, woulda, kind of, sorta approach versus being very specific and saying we want this language in there. And also reflecting that you came to us, 2 years ago, and we had to rewrite all those goals and put that specific language in.
Yeah, I guess the question.
it's really the most.
I think the question is, I think it's clear that we want that language woven into each individual objective where it makes sense, right? So is that something that you guys feel like you have a sense of the general desire of the board to see that? Do you feel like you have what you need, or do you need us to continue to provide that as we go through this process?
I think we have what we need. I know there's been kind of, since the DIA supplemental, I guess back then it was just DEI, the supplemental, and now there's been some changes in our process on how to implement those, and trying to figure out how to phrase it. The direction has been, not direction, but like it's kind of been almost like this, so DIA is in your values, and it's kind of implied within some of these objectives already. However, that may not be enough if you feel that's not enough, and specifically calling it out might be more preferable. But I do think I agree that for sake of time, knowing to go back to these and implement more language specifically calling out diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility specifically in these objectives would be helpful. But I made myself a note to tweak that in the language afterwards.
Yeah, 'cause it seems like I don't want to, if I'm ahead of myself, please jump in, but it seems like the preference of the board is to see that language interwoven within each
Okay.
objective rather than an overarching statement. And
Okay.
so
It may not necessarily be in every single objective, just because
where it makes sense.
Yeah, there has been some issues where, and maybe some other programs, they just threw it in and it didn't necessarily apply. So it kind of felt, performative. But so we want to make sure that we're including that language, intentionally, in that where it actually, applies and is appropriate.
Yeah. Does it, I don't want to get too far ahead of my board members. So if I'm speaking out of turn, you can jump in and correct. So, okay.
I just have a question further this. I totally agree with you. And I'm wondering, depending on how this looks, is there an opportunity at each area, at the top of each area to say, this work will be done with a lens for diversity, equity, and inclusion and what's the A? The other-
Accessibility.
Accessibility, sorry. We're all come back from lunch. But can that be like really positioned in each area? So instead of in each objective,
Perhaps maybe the goal areas, and we don't have to, like the goal area definitions, we don't have to necessarily tweak these today, but maybe that's something that we can apply more of that language there. So it's, you know, when you're thinking about licensing, we are also thinking about, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility.
right, so you're pulling it out and you're honoring it at the top of each goal area so that it's there. And then I think the accountability comes, so when we come and you're telling us about a new online tool, we're able to say, okay, can you talk to us about how you took into consideration all these different populations? How did you make sure it was accessible? So that maybe it's not quantified in that way, but it gives us an opportunity when we see things or we're getting updated to come back and say, how did you pull DEIA out of this at the top of this objective and tell us, when you were looking at application fees, for example, how does that contribute to having that lens?
Right. Thank you. So with that, yeah,
I think we might be ready to move on that
okay.
point, I guess.
So for 2.1, did anyone prefer the suggested language or do people want to keep the original language?
Can I ask something?
I think they're changing the wording.
What do you, when you say improve website tools and resources to support applicants and registrants, th- that seems like a very amorphous goal. Could you provide some clarification on what that is?
Yeah. First of all, the online tools, various ways to help them first to navigate the online through making more FAQs more pronounced. And that kind of goes in line with online with the website redesign, but looking at possibly utilization of chatbots to be able to find the answers, not chatbots, closed systems on our system, not providing therapy or anything, but yeah, to navigate the online and navigate our website and to get FAQs and for the guidance documents, more FAQs, more, things that would help somebody understand the whole pathway through licensure.
Okay, so I suggest we add to the proposed objective, improve website tools and resources to support applicants and registrants by navigating the website and improving efficiency toward licensure.
You can also use the wording that's actually in the environmental study that says accessible, clear, and concise
Yeah,
information.
there we go.
And it wasn't just for navigating, it's also just guidance documents that we would actually post online too. So I want to make
But it sounds like that piece of navigating the licensure pathway is an important part of this because
Mhm.
this is
Yeah.
about helping people become licensed
And-
therapists.
And that was a comment, if I recall correctly, to provide accessible, clear, and concise information. And ensure, well, somewhere navigation should be in there, so I'll just let you wordsmith it.
Okay. We have the navigation. Okay. All right. So with that, we'll move on to 2.2, reduce average processing times for as license and registration applications by leveraging technology and staffing efficiencies.
What does leveraging technology mean in this?
Finding ways to use technology, different technology or applications, or looking at Breeze and making sure that it works the best we can, and kind of leveraging any technological thing we can use to help the process, if that makes sense.
And we do have a suggested rewrite for that where we say, instead of leveraging, optimizing. I don't know if technology, I don't know if that feels like it'd be easier to understand.
Well, I guess my question on if we take out the staffing piece, Steve, maybe you can speak to what you've been doing with the staff and the cross training. So is that what you mean by the staffing efficiencies?
Correct. Looking at efficiencies, yeah, for
So
either cross training or, different, yeah, a whole bunch
different
of
ways to go
different
about that.
ways to look at
Temporary
efficiencies.
staff, all that.
Temporary staff, change the process, kind of looking at that too.
Okay, so we probably want to leave in something about that staffing work that you're
Think so.
doing. Yeah,
I would
if we could
appreciate
leave
it.
in some reference to that.
Okay, I just put it back to what it was before.
Like,
Right, and I did see a green
you guys
go
saw a green
forward. So
sign, right?
do people agree with the? Yes. Okay, we're seeing, okay, so on to 2.3. Assess application fees for equity, transparency, and supporting long-term fiscal solvency. How do people feel about that? And we, again, have another, oh, I see a green, go forward. Oh. All right, and then we have 2.4, update and streamline the licensure requirements to increase accessibility to the profession while strengthening consumer protection.
And
Hi, Steve.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
so this is to kind of capture, some of these items are to capture the work that we're currently doing that is not complete. And so this is really, most of the goals under, or the task items under this would be looking at the LMFT education requirements and all the education requirements for our license types, to look at the language and see what the current requirements are, and, where we can actually either make them clearer and understandable so people can understand, or if there's changes we can make to actually help people, make it easy, not easier, more accessible into the profession. So it's work that we're currently doing to look at those education requirements. Also, now it's the exam part I was looking at, but yeah, another one.
How does streamlining the licensure requirements strengthen consumer protection?
Well, while strengthening, we want to streamline it, but we want to ensure also that we are not limiting or not reducing the consumer protection. So we're looking at while strengthening consumer protection. So that's why it was with a with we put on there. Streamlining doesn't necessarily, does that make sense?
It does. I'm not. Why are we double barreling that? It's like those seem.
I think.
Why not just have a strengthened consumer protection objective?
You didn't streamline.
Because if we can just add while strengthening consumer protection to anything.
Well, I think
The-
there's, I don't want to jump ahead, but I'm on the licensing committee or workforce development.
Workforce development.
I think the thought is there's layers of consumer protection, not just sort of the regulatory side, but even expanding the pool of therapists, making it, streamlining that process, getting more qualified therapists into the system faster is also another layer of consumer protection by increasing access and increasing availability of resources. I don't know if that's kind of how I read it, but Steve, I know I
No,
jumped
that's
in
okay.
ahead of you, so I'm sorry.
No, that kind of clarifies what we're.
Maybe it's while continuing to strengthen.
And I think there's that sensitivity that we're not dropping all the rules in order to get more therapists through. So making sure that the public is aware that we're not doing streamlining for the sake of streamlining and then putting consumers at risk in the process. So I think maybe there's a better way, more artful way to say it, but I think we don't want the consumer protection piece to get lost in the streamlining.
Yeah. I mean, it could be while maintaining strong consumer protection or. I mean,
Okay, we're still on 2.4, correct? I don't want to get ahead of you. Okay, so my comment will build on the increasing accessibility. Okay. When I see that and I'm looking at the weaknesses from the Sunset Review report, I don't see where we've addressed the bullet point evaluate interstate compacts. So I just wanted to weigh in on that a little bit. At the heart of everything, with our workforce subcommittee and that we're looking at the workforce impact and licensing trends, correct? Now, the best practice is for us to look at what other states are doing, right? So in line with that thinking, my recommendation would be to conduct some periodic benchmarks to identify some licensing trends and its workforce impact that may serve, reading my own notes, that may serve to recommend regulatory or process adjustments based on those findings. So again, I know Roseanne and her team and you all are already looking at what other states are doing. That is quality work. So just to build on that, let's look at creating some benchmarks and bringing that to the fore, transparency, stakeholders and everything, and see what we can do with those findings.
I just have a quick question to clarify. Is your benchmarks idea about the interstate compacts note?
I am building on the idea of us looking at what other states are doing.
Okay. But about the interstate compacts specifically, right? Is it that bullet
So I'm
point?
just building on that. Yeah, that guys and yeah,
Okay.
not the compact. I know that's totally different. Yeah. So I'm not, let me be perfectly clear. Go ahead. Thank you. Safety first, safety first. No, thank you, Board Member Huff. Yeah, I'm not focusing on the compact at all. I'm building on the concept of us taking best practices and by learning what other states are doing.
So we do have a objective further on in the legislative area. I believe it's still there. And it's continuously evaluate emerging professional and industry trends and proactively implement regulatory or legislative updates to ensure clarity, effectiveness, and consumer protection. And I think that's kind of what we were looking at.
Great
in that.
minds think alike.
So
Okay. So where is that?
that is in the legislative and
Oh,
leg
okay,
and reg.
okay. Well, good. I
section.
just want to make sure we're addressing. Wonderful. Thank you, Steve.
And that's kind of looking at all the, not only kind of the industry trends with that will include looking at the AI, looking at possibly the psychedelic therapy,
Right.
but also, things that are going on in other jurisdictions and
So-
major points.
In keeping with that, then, again, 2.4, though, we're looking at accessibility. So we're looking at licensing trends and the workforce impact and things like that. So maybe what I'm suggesting can kind of be, I still think we could add something here. If not, it's okay too. What do you think?
So Dr. Walker, Sarah typed out what you were recommending in the notes section of that slide so that we captured what you said, and we can revisit it when we get back to the laws and regulations portion. Yeah. Are we okay with what 2.4 says now? Does it look good? I'm seeing green. Okay. So that is the objectives that the board staff came up with. Did anyone have any objectives for this licensing goal area that they feel were missed that they'd like to add? All right, I'm seeing green, so I think that means we get to go to the next goal area.
All right, so now we're going to move on to examinations. And in your environmental scan report, those are going to be on pages 16 through 21. And we've got the goal area description here. As we move to the next slide, these are the weaknesses that were addressed in the environmental scan and also some from the Sunset Review report. And once again, the check marks indicate ones that we felt that the objectives that staff came up with were kind of already addressed. And if we move down to the suggested objectives, we'll start with the first one, which is reviewing exam eligibility timing to identify opportunities to streamline the pathway to licensure. And the only suggestion that we solid have for this one is instead of improved timeliness, we thought reduced delays would be a little bit more appropriate here. Sound good? Yeah.
Yeah, that the timeliness word there, I got stuck on that too, because it's,
No,
I think it's bigger than just the timeline or the process, where I think we were looking at like accessibility and outcomes. And so the point in moving, in allowing that earlier was for a whole host of reasons. And I feel like timeliness or delays alone doesn't really quite capture that. So
We didn't do public comment on
I don't
the
know
last
if
one.
outcomes or accessibility or I'm not
This
exactly sure
objective
what
or- okay.
what the right word is there, but anybody else? Sorry.
And then real quick, I realized we forgot to do public comment on licensing. So we
Somebody-
want to jump back real quick.
Somebody should tell the chair that she's not doing her job.
Sorry.
It's the post-lunch like haze a little bit. Okay, so we'll go back to goal 2 and we'll do public comment in the room. Seeing none in the room, moderator, would you open the online comments?
WebEx is taking public comments on all of Goal 2. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. Okay, now back to.
Okay, back to examination. Thank you. All right, moving on to 3.2, we had,
So you, on 2.3.1, will you kind of wordsmith
oh
that
yes,
a little bit
reduce
more?
delays.
I'm not sure if reduced delays is quite
Oh,
right either. Kelly, were you gonna say something on that? Oh, okay.
so we want to keep improved timeliness then?
No.
Or-
Okay, maybe I'm the only one with questions. It just doesn't feel quite right, but is outcomes the right word?
Matter of really, it's to.
Or reduce barriers?
It's not really even I
Okay.
think we considered streamline because currently right now, he gained the 3,000 hours and then you have to apply for licensure and then you have to, once you get that done. So it's streamlining it by, the concept that we originally proposed was, let's say, this is not what I think we proposed this before, but 1,500 hours, you can get into the clinical exam, still collect your hours while you're taking the exam. So it really kind of it streamlines,
Shortens that
it
timeline.
shortens the timeline to shorten. I mean,
I think that seems like improve outcomes for candidates because they're moving to licensure faster. Right?
if they move, I mean, some might not. That's,
I mean, yeah, I see your point.
Or should we just end the sentence at licensure? Licensure?
Yeah.
Is the rest of the sentence not necessary, that we're just reviewing exam eligibility timing to identify opportunities to streamline the pathway to licensure? We don't have to,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
that is
I mean,
enough.
That's, yeah.
Okay. All right, in that case,
Okay.
good? Okay. And 3.2, and it sounded like we did have some comments on 3.2?
I have comments on
Yeah.
3.2. So here's my concern, and it kind of gets back to what John was saying. One of the external stakeholder comments in the environmental scan was, exam questions are misleading, classes subjective, outdated, use unclear languages, don't represent diverse viewpoints and cultural backgrounds, have racial and gender biases. And in 3.2, the objective that was proposed to the board today is enhance recruitment of subject matter experts to expand and diversify the pool supporting board and national examination development. That doesn't seem to jive with the external stakeholder information that was in the environmental scan, because the purpose of subject matter experts, if you're looking toward exam development, is to ensure that the exam is incorporating diverse viewpoints and non-classist language and is accessible and equitable. So somehow that the concern, which is a legitimate one in exam development, should get into 3.2.
I hear what you're saying. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of the wording. It's more of a broader than just the subject matter experts. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that what our exam developers are doing to
Yeah.
work, just because it's on the mind, like AMF they do, and they make sure, first of all, that, subject matter experts have DEIA training, then they have the diff analysis, or just as an example. So it's like ensuring that we have tools that are trying to work towards a, less biased exam.
I mean, yeah, exactly,
So-
because this was one of the stakeholder comments. And
Mhm.
if you look at the trends, part of it was comprehensive exams, overall satisfaction, and fair exams. And this goes directly to the stakeholder comment. And the objective which Solid came up with deals with national exam development. And that doesn't seem to address the very specific concern that is here, when you're using subject matter experts. So anyway, that's my point. I think this section would need to be wordsmithed a little bit better.
I guess my question kind of related to that is, do subject matter experts, are they part of the development of these national exams? That's they are.
Yeah.
From every state
from-
they're represented, or just
Depending on what
California?
exam, but yeah, for national exams, all states and stuff. Yeah.
For every national exam or only some national exams?
For all national exams.
All
yeah.
national exams, they sit on those.
They try to get a sample as much, yeah.
Okay.
And the greater the pool, the better you can, the more choices you have. So.
Okay.
So I think this was an objective that I'll say I created. So yeah, whatever.
I didn't mean to call you out.
No.
Steve.
I wanted to take blame for it. I didn't want Solid to take blame for it. But I think it's a good point. Looking at it a broader, as in, on not necessarily just ongoing review, but support for working with whoever it is, whether it's OPS or whether it's the national exam. There's a way to, I think.
Consistent with public protection, I think you can wordsmith that a little better, because our purpose is not national exam development to the extent that we are using national exams. That's their purpose.
Mhm.
Our purpose is public protection, and looking through this with the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So for this one, we did have like a suggestion. It's more just kind of moving things around in there. But we have enhanced recruitment efforts to build a broader, more diverse pool of subject matter experts for exam development. And I have two questions on this with the discussion now. The first one being, I know, Steve, you mentioned that the subject matter experts are for the national exam, but is the recruitment that the board does for subject matter experts apply to national exam development, or just
Well,
kind
we
of-
have a, I mean, we and OPS do for our exams that we create, but then the national exams, we can support them. We always do in the recruitment of that.
Okay.
When they go out to get new recruits, we can definitely do more of a concerted effort to that too, to help
Okay.
them. But yeah, I mean, it's
Okay. I think
we have a part in that.
maybe taking national out just so it
Just
doesn't.
exams?
Yeah, just exam development. And then my second question would be, it kind of sounds like maybe to specifically address that, I think it's number 5 in the environmental scan. Maybe putting at the end of that suggested one, so enhance recruitment efforts to build a broader, more diverse pool of subject matter experts for exam development to address biases in the exams. Is that something that we want to specifically call out in?
I think you should, I think since it's been called out to us, I think we should call it out, certainly.
In 3.2, can you change the word enhance to improve? Because
Yeah, we could do that.
it's totally different than improve.
That's true.
Yeah.
I thought you just suggested the word broaden. When you read, I thought you said broaden.
Improve, broaden.
Oh,
Yeah.
to build a broader, more diverse pool of subject matter experts?
Yeah, I don't even have.
Oh,
it.
yes, we did
I don't
suggest
even
that.
have that on my sheet. Okay.
Oh, that's the one that we're
I don't have
suggesting.
a screen.
Oh, no.
I can't see. Okay, so I was listening to you. So thank you. So I was
Mhm.
listening to you. Do you mind reading it again?
Yeah, and I can read it slower too, because sometimes I speak fast. Improve recruitment efforts to build a broader, more diverse pool of subject matter experts for exam development to address biases in the exams.
When I was reading number 5 in the environmental scan, I was just wondering if there are any other realistic objectives aside from the subject matter experts that could address that weakness. And I have no ideas to propose, but it does seem like something might be missing here. 3.2 is important, but is there something else?
Well, usually you use the subject matter experts to develop the exam, and really it sounds like the issue is the development of the exam is, as your stakeholders are saying, very biased. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer because I'm not as involved in,
Yeah,
the
no,
board
no,
and
yeah.
exams.
I mean, it's kind of, we're talking about like we have our own exam development and the national ones do, I mean, they follow similar development steps per se, but they have additional things that they might do that we're not doing in OP with our exams right now. You know, the other thing is, it's another goal, but also considering like alternative pathways or the way that the exam is constructed and what kind of questions are, what the timing. So there's a whole bunch of other areas that you can look at to see, not only to talk, not only necessarily for bias per se, but for other better, I guess, evaluations than we have. The discussion is on the standardized exams, and are they, is there ways we can improve that? It's not really answering necessarily your question, going on a ramble here. Does that, looking at the bias though, yeah. I'm trying
Yeah, actually, it's probably a good call.
I'm not sure where my thought was going with that. So sorry. Yeah, I know.
So we did add one suggestion to 3.2, which was to say possible biases.
It's kind of I mean, because if you put out there that it is biased,
It's not possible. It exists.
We've actually had material presented that says the research shows it is biased. So us saying possible is just being polite, but it is biased. And that information has been presented to this board in an open public forum.
In that case, do we want to
Yeah, but does there,
remove it?
yeah, I would say we should probably not address, we should probably not have it in our strategic plan, considering that the state is engaged in developing the exams. And even if there are, I mean, are we opening up the state to litigation by
That's the
putting
concern.
something
It's a good
like
point.
this in
That's the
a
concern.
public
I-
document?
I sort of want to talk to council about this.
They would probably say it would probably not. And historically, when like statements like that are kind of because it can open you up. I mean, you're then, next week we can get a call and, well, what are you going to do about your bias exams? Which we'll look at. I mean, we definitely will. We're working on stuff and we
Does-
want to work on stuff, but it might raise it to a higher level if we're stating that these are biased.
Does the is council there? Because, I mean, does the inclusion of the word possible constitute an affirmation or? Can you?
Oh, can you?
We can't hear you back there. Sorry.
She had the computer on, so she could speak.
Does the inclusion of the word possible in a strategic plan proposed objective constitute an admission?
The word possible does not,
Okay, and
but,
well, if we take it out,
right,
does that constitute an admission?
it may, you may want to err on the side of caution there.
That's it.
Would it be better to focus on improving outcomes or improve, like, for,
There
the
are-
pools of applicants, right? 'Cause
No,
that's-
there are biases in the exams. That's true. And it's not consistent with our public protection mandate to not say it. And it would be minimizing the effect upon a marginalized community to not state it. So I say keep it in. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Possible bias.
I mean, remove it. Just say address biases in the exams.
Okay. Wait.
That's my take, though. It's my sole take. If other board members disagree, it's up to them.
We have others that want to weigh in? I think
So
I'm uncomfortable with the potential risk of removing the word possible, but
I am too.
You mean including possible?
yeah, can you say that again, Wendy? I want to keep it in. I thought you were talking about removing possible.
I'm talking about removing it and to mitigate the risk, you would keep possible in.
Yes.
Well, why don't we just keep it completely safe and just take out to address possible biases in the exams completely? Everything else is an assumption. I mean, if that's the way we're leaning, then just take it all out.
And we can just end it at exam development.
Yep.
Okay. And you can mention biases in the action plan.
Yeah.
All right, in that case,
There.
3.2 look okay now?
Well,
Yes, okay. All right, 3.3, conducting ongoing reviews of examination to keep current and consider alternative pathways. This was one that we suggested maybe removing just because it seemed like it was a routine task, but if you, I know there was some talk about alternative pathways earlier, so maybe it might be something that we do want to keep.
I think I just need to pause and
Sure.
can you reorient me?
Mhm.
Are we trying to be explicit in diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility language? Or are we not?
Gonna be the board's decision. I mean, that's
So
kind of
I
the
think
board's
we had
decision.
said that in the next, they're going to work on that in including more accessibility DEIA language, integrating that into the comments, and they'll bring that into the next draft rather than
Sure.
wordsmithing each one, but I'm
But
sorry.
the main concept of the objective, if
Sure.
that looks good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I apologize. We're removing bias because the whole end clause, as Member Stovik noted, because we're going to wordsmith that later into something else.
I think going back, we're back on 3.2, correct? I think the consensus for that was saying board members did not feel comfortable keeping in possible, and then other board members
Correct,
felt
yeah.
more comfortable keeping in possible. And so to kind of come to a consensus, it was decided to just remove the whole section and move the whole section about biases in general. And then that can be something that can be brought up in action planning to not,
Yeah.
open yourselves up to some sort of, but I
Yeah.
think Steve wants to say
Well, no,
something.
yeah, you're saying it perfectly. I mean, either in action planning or when we report on these items, and then we can actually have those discussions in public, if we, from these action items, when we report on them, we can then, beyond looking at how to incorporate DI in the objective itself, that's something that we can always talk about at the board meetings when these items come up for discussion, the action items, which is going to be with staff bringing things to you about, we did this update, we looked at it, we looked at exams, or the national exam is doing this effort for alternative pathways. And then like I said before, we all need to operate under that DEIA lens. And that's a point we can, at that point when we're talking about those either policy decisions or updates that, may have something that is of interest and you have concerns about that, then bring those items up at the point. And I think with the risk, that's where we're talking about the risk of putting at least the bias, it puts us at somewhat of a legal risk, and but it's not like we can still, it's better to talk about those as we go through the policy decision-making process, or when we actually have board discussions. So I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, and I really sincerely apologize. I want to be able to have a clear, consistent narrative across this, and I'm really struggling with understanding what our narrative is. I was under the impression for the last 2.5 goals that we were trying to be as explicit as possible. Stovek says, why don't we just take the whole clause out? Which I heard, I don't know if he meant it as this, as what a ridiculous thing to propose. I didn't think we would actually do it. If we can't agree, why don't we get rid of the whole thing? I thought that's what he meant, but then we actually did. And I think I'm really confused. Are we or are we not foregrounding DEIA language?
Yeah, and I agree, because that's why, that's the point I was making, right? I mean, because we had this information and it wasn't in any way integrated into the objectives, right? So we have this stakeholder statement which says, here's all the problems in the exam that we are feeling, and it's not integrated into the objectives in any way. And so we're kind of having to formulate this objective now. So I propose that we just say, call it out. We know that the exams are biased. Maybe, maybe not our state exams, but we certainly know one exam is biased. We've sat in board hearings and heard the evidence. Public members and licensees and associates have come in and said, this is how the exam is biased. It's a very significant issue. And then I don't understand why we're not saying to address biases in the exams. I mean, and I understand the nature of wanting to protect the institution. That's a very natural thing to do. But our job's not the institution. Our job is public protection. And this is part of public protection. So, that's it.
I guess I think the point of doing this is to address sort of these inequities and outcomes,
Yeah.
right? So that there would be no point in having 3.2 if that wasn't a concern of ours. So are we restating the concern because we feel like we need to restate it again? I feel like these are conversations that have been had and would continue to be had. But then sort of what's the point in sort of introducing legal risk into this?
So this is not the hill I want to die on, and I really not trying to be difficult. I'm trying to understand what we're doing here. If that is the stance, then we should take out every mention of accessibility. We should take out mentions of diversity. We should take out all mentions and just say, like, we have an overarching goal. Let's not introduce ourselves to some sort of liability. Let's just say we're doing the best we can, and here are the things we're doing. If we want to have this ambiguous stance that gives us a lot of wiggle room and we can point to some overarching claim, then okay, I think that makes our discussion a lot easier. This seems inconsistent with I think the last couple hours though of how we've been tailoring this.
I'd like to
agree
think there's
because-
some middle ground here
Right.
rather than we wordsmith every word in this document or we ignore all considerations of DEIA, and it feels like that's the energy that's coming from you right now. It's like, well, we either need to wordsmith it or we might as well just take it all out. And I think there's some middle ground here where we can recognize that there's improvements to be made, but maybe be careful in the words we choose, acknowledging that we are here to serve a variety of goals and needs here. But
I agree that it's confusing on the examination, and I'm just wondering if we can wipe it all out and have one objective. And that objective states that we are aware of the bias, that we are working to improve whatever it is, subject matter experts, examination, et cetera, and put all those things in one sentence and have one objective instead of 5 objectives that are all conflicting.
Okay, so Trisha is writing that down in the notes section. And then hopefully we can come back to this at a later point and kind of workshop it. But I think the point that we want to really focus on today is do the objectives that staff proposed more or less cover some of the weaknesses that were called out in the environmental scan, and are they appropriate for the board to do within the mandate of consumer protection? And 2, do you have the resources available to do that objective? Because that's the other thing that we do need to remember is the staff are going to be doing the work to do this. And so we have to, ensure that they have the available time and resources. Otherwise, you're going to continue getting complaints about timeliness.
Or goals or objectives we won't be able to reach. But that being said, though, I want us to think really big, though. I don't want us to limit ourselves. I understand incorporating the DEI into looking at each and every objective. I honestly think, really posing what the focus is for, you brought up, I'm going back to that, the procedures or some mentioning on examinations, having a thing that defines maybe what are we looking at as in a DEI lens at as an examination as an overarching kind of like view. And then we have objectives that don't necessarily state in exactly that it's a DEI in the actual objective, but we have, if we look at the goal 3 examinations, we can see DEI, this is kind of our, when we're focusing on examinations, this is what we are going to take into consideration when we are making decisions that, you know, that will affect candidates or the public or whatnot.
And I think to build on your point, once we get to the nitty gritty and assigning tasks, that's when the measurable data-driven feedback comes in after you've done the work. Then we have the benchmarks, we have the stats, we have the reports and everything, because you have the objective and then you have the task. So right now, we're just looking at the objective. We're only looking at half of the equation at this point.
You're pretty,
Yeah,
basically an
And the
overarching objective.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, those tasks will answer some of the questions that are being presented today. But we don't have that
And
information yet.
one of those tasks may even be, you know, looking at one of the specific exams and determining, I know we've already said like, yes, it does have biases, but we'll just say, you know, for sake of argument, the step is to determine what biases are in that exam and documenting that. And that can be a task that falls under that.
And that would be directions for, that's kind of like for, and that's kind of the direction for me and the staff to really, with that we're hearing here and having those, I think it would help though. And I like the idea of having some guiding principle of saying, here's not just, I know that I think we have DCA has stuff already and not just a guiding principle for overall, crafting something so that, you know, when we are looking at exams, we can kind of see not just overall, this is what you should look like, a DEIA lens. It's like, well, great. What about examinations? What are things that we can, you know, when we're looking at decisions on where to utilize our resources and for that, what is going to be the best that's going to, you know, improve our system, let me say, it includes everything, while at the same time ensuring that, you know, that equity and accessibility is there. And then we can, you know, when we craft those objectives, I mean, the actual tasks, those are things then a bigger discussion in committees, because a lot of these will be discussed in committees. If they're all, if you look at the goals, they kind of are all in committee work. So a lot of this stuff will get done in committee, talking about the actual, here's what we're looking at for some of the task items. Committee will review that and kind of give us feedback on that. So we have, just my thoughts. Take them with it.
All right, so it sounds like as far as 3.2 goes, a lot of offline workshopping on that one. And we'll come back to that one offline. But I do want to kind of keep us on track because we do only have today to work on this. I would hate to make you guys have to schedule another board meeting to work on this. So if we are okay to live with it, it's okay to move on to 3.3. Okay. Okay. So conducting ongoing reviews of examination to keep and consider alternative pathways.
So you had mentioned earlier about potentially removing that goal.
I did, but there was a lot of discussion about alternative pathways, and so my opinion's changed. And it sounds like it's something we might need to keep.
Well, here's a question for our EO then. I mean, the alternative pathways conversation has been here since I've been a board member. We really haven't pursued anything in that direction. Is it really a goal we want to suddenly add on with all of this other work that's ahead of us right now with the national exam? Because when we made the decision to move so aggressively towards national exam, we kind of took the alternative pathways off the table. And that's just kind of the reality of where we're at right now.
Well, honestly, I think
So do we still really even want to pretend we're considering alternative pathways?
we actually, I maybe that, because it is with the national exams, they are doing work on alternative pathways now. So it would be moving forward and we could have a voice in that and talking to them about that. So it we could have that kind of as a part of a task, not as a full-on objective and incorporate that.
What do they
into
mean by alternative pathways that you're discussing?
alternative pathways? Actually, what am I talking about? National, no, they're talking about alternative forms. But the alternative pathways, I think, should be on, because it's something we do want to consider, but it may not be soon. I mean, I don't know. It's up to the board, though.
Right, but all of our momentum has said, you
I
know
see what you're saying.
what, we've thought about alternative pathways, but we're going to commit to this national exam now. That's not an alternative
Yeah,
pathway.
that's true. Yeah.
So once again, it's about focusing our energy towards things we're actually going to be pursuing.
Okay.
And I think in the time I've been here, we've never actually pursued any marketable information about alternative pathways, not once.
Okay.
So
Let me just piggyback on that. John, I'm not quite sure where you're going with that, but I hear you, okay? My thing is, where were we with AI 4 years ago? As an alternative pathway to addressing social media complaints, creating videos for trainings and things like that. So I'm just saying what we don't know about the future is still unknown. So when I hear the term alternative pathways, it just lends itself to keeping us open-minded to maybe what is to come that we're just not even aware of. So it's a different perspective.
Nick and Eleanor, are there alternative pathways to licensure in your licenses?
No, there's not. Well, let me rephrase that. There's a subtle nuance, I guess, to that question, which is there's two different types of licensing, two different types of national exams that states can adopt. One of those is the National Counselor Examination, and the other one is the National Clinical Mental Health Counselor Examination, which is what California adopted. The difference between those two exams is the NCMHCE is more of an application-based competency exam, so understanding through vignettes, application of concepts, whereas the NCE is a traditional multiple choice 120 question examination. So there's somewhat of a difference in that regard, but in terms of them being national exams, they're still national exams.
And it sounds like individuals don't have the choice to adopt one another's, whatever state they want to.
In California, they don't have a choice. Other states do recognize either or for that. So, and the difference with that would be that some states, which were part of our conversation that we're having now, so many students are eligible if they graduate from an accredited program to take the NCE right out of their graduate program. And that then makes them eligible for licensure right away once they complete their hours. For states that recognize that exam, for states that don't recognize that exam, then that's less of a choice.
And board member Jones is not here, but I'm pretty sure there is no alternative pathway to licensed educational psychologist either. So, Sovek, it has always just been about MFTs, right? Alternative pathway discussions. The idea of alternative pathways. Yeah. Okay.
No, I think it's affecting all license types. In many jurisdictions, they're looking at alternative pathways no matter what. And that means not necessarily taking exam. And to clarify this objective, I think what I was really looking at there is trying to capture in that the concern on the, in the sunset review too, or one of the issues we raised is putting somewhere in there where we would continually look at review exams because of the concern about standardized exams. But at the same time, also part of that is with the conversation that's going on nationally, in some jurisdictions, it's do we even have to have an exam, or are there not just maybe you can get in through the exam, but if you for some reason can't pass that exam after a certain amount of times, like is there another pathway through that, more supervised hours, maybe that's the route
Apprenticeship
we're.
model, sure.
If I
Yeah,
could
so
also
that's where I
say,
think it was trying to capture both of those, is so we keep it on track, that we're not just going along and just the test is there, but we're trying to reviewing and kind of looking at those exams, and then, like I said, alternative possibly pathways if they're feasible. So
I just think we're getting into the weeds. The word is consider. And it just leaves it open, but also we're coming back to the equity lens. Consider means that there might be other opportunities for people that maybe have had these challenges to have an alternative pathway. So if we're going to have an equity lens, I don't think there's anything with the wrong consider. It just leaves it open to possibility. Because this is a long-term thinking plan, so.
May I offer a suggestion on it? Maybe it's not about us reviewing the exam, but working with professional organizations to keep current and consider alternative pathways. Maybe CAMP, the LCSW organizations, maybe they're actually, us looking at the exam, I don't think we have the power or the bandwidth to actually take action. But us maybe working with the affinity and professional organizations, that might be actually where an objective could exist. So action items could include things like, meeting with Campton, talking about considerations they've heard from their membership and stuff like that. I think if we shifted a little bit, maybe they could stay in here. Does that make any sense to anyone?
I think these conversations would take place more with the national exam developers and OPS, our exam developers. Not really. I mean, CAMP would be part of the conversations if we had those brought these forward. And then for the alternative pathways, CAMP, I mean, they could have feedbacks, and it'd be interesting to see what the California people, but I mean, it would be part of the process. We look and like we did the last time where we brought forward the alternative pathways. It was, I believe it was, I want to say Illinois that brought something, and it was a a jurisdictional thing, but we thought, oh, that's interesting. Let's bring it and see what people think about it. And that's where we get in CAMP involved and stuff. The ongoing review of the exams, really, that's really between us and the exam developers and exam, owners, and then OPS, our exams too. I don't know if that clarifies or adds.
Right. So
confusion.
I'm curious why it's part of the alternative pathways goal.
That's true. Now it is.
That's why I
see
suggested
what- yeah.
working with affinity organizations who have a stake in it
Okay.
and say, hey, Steve, we've got a great idea. We heard from a member. Let's work with this. If you're trying to make an actionable objective. Because I don't think you're going to sit down with the national licensing exam people and have conversations about alternative pathways. I don't think that's actually going to happen, is it?
Probably not.
Okay.
How about we go back and craft that? Is it seem viable to keep something about improving the? I need something. I think we need something in there to. Okay, move on. How about I craft something that splits those two up?
Okay. So we'll make a note to work on this one offline. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to answer Justin's question. I'm not aware of any alternative pathways in California, but I can't speak for the rest of the other states.
So the state bar has an alternative pathway, but you still have to take the exam, and it's through clerkship, and it's an apprenticeship essentially.
Okay.
It's a traditional alternative pathway, but it still ends in the exam.
Okay.
All right. Going to 3.4, the suggestion, so we have broaden and improve examination preparation materials. This one, the suggestion that Solid had for this was to change it to improve exam information resources to establish expectations and support applicants.
Better than I crafted. Thanks.
I'm seeing a green. Yes.
Of course, I have something to add. Can we put something like through the exam process? Because I think the idea of only focusing on them passing the exam is not actually what they were asking for in the stakeholders' comments. They want support from the moment through the whole thing.
Okay.
I think that comes up.
Sounds good.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. right, any more comments on 3.4? Nope, okay. Next we have 3.5, and the only suggestion I have here is taking out coordinate and just have it be implement the Association of Marital and Family Therapy Regulatory Boards, which is just abbreviated here for space, but will be spelled out in the strategic plan. I'm not sure if the coordinate really applies.
I have a comment.
Oh, go ahead.
So we've been clear that we are not willing or ready to move forward with the national exam until we receive more information from them.
And that,
And we have at every meeting said that we reserve the right to pivot away from a national exam if we don't receive the data that the full sort of information, data, and transparency from them.
Yeah, can I just recraft that to take out I'll recraft it to say continue or something to the effect of where we're not.
like consider
Like consider continuing it.
continue discussions, maybe?
Continue discussions,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue discussions on implementing, okay. Okay, other than that, looks good? Okay, perfect. Okay, that is all that staff came up with for examinations. Were there any other topics that board members feel needs to be called out in a specific objective? No? Okay. In that case, are we ready to move to public comment?
Public comment?
Oh.
Sorry.
I mean, I could call it, but.
That's me. Okay, all right. Do we have any in-person audience members wishing to comment on goal area number 3? Seeing none. Moderator, do we have any online participants wishing to comment on goal area number 3?
WebEx, now is the time to raise a hand. You can do so by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. Do we want to, folks need a break? Are we good continuing on to number 4? Okay, all right. Yeah.
I think.
Okay, all right, on to goal number 4.
All right, so our next goal area is enforcement, defined as protect the health and safety of consumers through the enforcement of laws. And if you have the environmental scan with you, the summaries are on pages 22 through 27. And like before, we have a summary of the weaknesses pointed out in the environmental scan and also from the sunset review with green check marks indicating what staff objectives have already addressed. All right, so here we have the objectives. How do people feel about that first one? Strengthen the monitoring and analysis of violations and disciplinary trends to support informed policy development and continuous improvement. I see it looks good. Okay. And we did have a slight suggestion, but to me, it's not very different.
Oh, it was just removing the and analysis just because
Monitoring.
it didn't seem like it's feasible to strengthen the analysis of it. But okay.
So it would just be strengthen the monitoring of violations and disciplinary trends to support informed policy development and continuous improvement. Are you still okay with it? Okay, I'm seeing nodding heads. I'll take that for a green arrow. Okay. Next, we have 4.2, strengthen the continuing education and supervisor audit process to ensure compliance and support professional competency. Solid had suggested breaking this into 2 objectives. So you'd have strengthen the continuing education audits process and then strengthen the supervisor audit process. And it would just be a little easier to track that way when we get down to action planning. Does anyone have any suggestions for 4.2? Do they like breaking it into the 2 separate objectives? All right, I'm seeing nodding heads. All right. And then 4.3, enhance communication with consumers and licensees about the complaint process and outcomes to ensure transparency and understanding. And then Solid had a suggestion, enhance communication with consumers and licensees about the complaint process to promote transparency and understanding. So just slightly less words.
I do have a kind of a question related to that a little bit. So what would be, I'm just thinking, for example, the enhanced communication with consumers, with licensees, perhaps that might be a little bit easier. And with consumers, providers are to provide information to consumers about where they can file a complaint. How can you objectively know that that's happening without, and how do you audit that? Because it's not a CEU unless you're auditing someone's notes. I'm trying to see, how would you know if that communication to consumer is actually taking place? Does that make sense?
Kind of. I think it's really focusing on it's really focusing on about our communication with, you're talking about.
Well, and I think it goes hand in hand, right? Because you're saying enhancing communication with consumers, how? Unless you're a consumer of mental health, it's going to be difficult to communicate to them, right?
I guess maybe it would be enhanced communications with complainants and licensees, maybe is what the wording should have been. So it's like, and then also for consumers on the aspect of making sure that we have the resources on our website or education materials for if they want, the process of filing a complaint, what happens to a complaint, what the enforcement process is, explaining to them more what, maybe the outcomes of a case and what those mean and what's behind them. Because we do have a lot where, if when we talk about non-jurisdictional complaints, it's very hard to understand when you're a consumer. It's like, well, why not? And then in trying to put more information out that, that's where I was thinking about that. It was not.
Okay. So to the complainant specifically, not to broadly the consumer.
Not broadly the consumer. I mean, it would exist in there for the consumer to look at, but I mean, that's why I put consumer, but really complainant actually, since it is in the enforcement goal, makes sense.
To kind of address that in the weaknesses, it's number 7. They specifically mention that they say it's difficult to speak with staff regarding questions or consumer complaints. So I think switching consumers to complainants is an appropriate fix.
More precise, yeah.
All right, so with that change to 4.3, does that look good to people? All right, I'm seeing green, so we'll look at 4.4. And that is improve enforcement case processing times to support efficient and consistent case resolution. And Solid had a suggestion. This is just another way of wording it, to streamline the enforcement process to promote efficiency and timely case resolution.
That's my question there is how would we streamline the processing times?
There's always a way to streamline. It's all, no, actually,
I feel
you're
like
right,
that's
the
kind of a
streamline though,
default route, so
yeah,
how
the
do
streamline,
we-
you
I
can't
mean,
really,
there's a process that we can't really change, so I'm not.
yeah. so
Streamlining usually
streamlining wouldn't
refers
be,
to a process,
So
so.
would,
I think it's really looking at the processing times, yeah, the improvements, so
okay, so switch it back to improve.
I think
Re-
so.
Okay.
That's more about staffing and resources than it is about the process itself.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then I probably asked this during the pre-strategic planning sessions, but that was last year. So I'm going to ask again. Have you worked with the Office of Organizational Improvement on
we
these? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for the reminder. Appreciate it. Very good. Kelly's got a.
And then did people have anything else they wanted to add to this goal area?
So, and briefly, one of the, in your environmental scan in the enforcement section, under section 1, one of the main concerns was that the board is overly punitive in their enforcement. And external stakeholders also noted a disproportionate number of BIPOC populations get DUIs. The board tends to enforce against DUIs because they're obviously the most common substance use disorder related crime. And that relates back to the criminal justice system having a proportion of BIPOC individuals getting over criminalized. I don't know that there's a lot we can do about that because it's the nature of the criminal system. We also don't keep track of race and gender. That's not part of our data collection set. And I also don't think it's lawful. So I don't see any feasible way to integrate that into the goals or objectives. I just wanted to state it.
Yeah, the DUI comments were the biggest number of things people had to say.
Yeah, and I want to make clear the board's standard sentencing guidelines are driven by the standard sentencing guidelines. It's not solely the board per se. It's the nature of the sentencing guidelines which are being designed.
Mhm.
And we can have a conversation about that. You know, the board is certainly welcome to, but we're limited in our ability.
All right. Did anyone else have anything to add to the enforcement goal area?
Well, along those lines, it's true that almost everything that we see is somebody doing a DUI not on the time that they're performing their profession. So maybe there's something in the professional guidelines about drinking and alcohol in general and how it will affect your profession.
Is that something that we want to include, or I don't know, maybe informational stuff just to keep people aware, PSAs, or it's kind of a difficult topic.
Professional organizations provide that
Yeah.
pretty
Okay.
extensively.
And we do out, I mean, not necessarily, we do some sort of outreach about, or we have some sort of material, which is part of this is updating stuff about, you know, what to do if you, or what the complications are if you have a DUI, or what you do through the licensure process and how that affects you. And we have education material out there on that stuff too, but there's always, yeah, but I think that's captured in some of the outreach stuff.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So with that, it looks like we're ready to move on to the next goal area then.
Oh, public comment.
Public comment.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Public comment. Thank you.
All right, opening up public comment for goal number 4. Are there any in-person audience comments? Being none, moderator, are there any online comments for goal number 4?
WebEx, now's the time to raise a hand for enforcement goals. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. On to goal number 5.
There we go. All right. Outreach and education. This is always my favorite area for boards. We have our goal area description here. And then if you've got the environmental scan in front of you, your summaries are going to be on pages 40 through 45. I'm going to flip over there real fast. And then once again, these are the weaknesses that were addressed in that environmental scan. I felt that we covered all of them. But maybe you think differently. Additionally, we also have from the Sunset Review Report, utilize that outreach and education committee to pursue initiatives that align with your strategic plan goals. So moving on to our proposed objectives from staff. We did have a suggestion on the first one. To change it to just host live events for educators, supervisors, and associates to address licensure pathway concerns and gather feedback. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I think you need to go on the mic.
So when you say live, are you saying physically live or virtual?
I think it could be either, but if you would like us to be specific, we can.
You may not even need to say either. I mean, you could say virtual, you probably get more people, but maybe even just host.
Maybe just host events.
Uh-huh.
I mean, actually, first.
Look good?
Could I add that we also include licensees? Because I have people who approach me all the time and say, how do you do this? Might be good to have us invited to those events as well, too.
That's funny.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we, sorry if I'm throwing a wrench into things. Do we want to say, for stakeholders, that way you can kind of consider, well, I guess consumers don't really matter with this one when it comes to licensure pathways.
And I think we do have we do kind of have that objective on the very bottom, which is kind of strategies.
Yeah,
to
we do
reach
have a
the-
separate one for consumers.
And that
So
was kind of the thought for this one, was looking at our pool of, licensees, registrants, and applicants, and including any kind of live event.
do we need to call out registrants on here also since we put licensees?
Education supervisors, associates. We have
Okay, associates. Okay, perfect. Sometimes they get used
Yeah.
interchangeably.
Well, it
and I
it
get
is
confused.
interchangeable. I mean, I don't.
All right.
Associates is more appropriate.
5.1 looks good. 5.2, update the board's website and outreach materials to increase clarity and expand resources. And we didn't have any changes on this one.
So this is more referring to like online. So do we do any much physical pamphlets or anything like that?
Oh, we have a ton. Yeah.
So maybe we could include that.
I think that's what outreach materials is what we're including in that.
Okay.
All right.
Or maybe the distribution somehow, because
That gets a little pricey with the distribution of hard materials. I mean, we do everything that we do. Have a hard copy of a will is actually is online too. So
All right. Well, if 5.2 looks okay. what we have for 5.3, we do have a suggestion on this one, which we suggest just kind of condensing it down to say enhanced outreach to licensees and individuals pursuing a mental health career.
Oh, no, she's got one, yeah. Wait, which one are we on?
5.3.
Oh, okay.
You need to,
Yeah, I don't, what do you think? I mean, what do you? Yeah.
The third sentence is the one that's reworded, right?
Correct. Can we bold this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
There we
it
go.
really was focusing on just
Okay.
website and, yeah, and materials, not.
Okay. In that case, we'll leave as is.
I'm looking at a totally different one.
Can I just ask Steve, what do you mean when you say expand resources for licensees and individuals pursuing a mental health career?
Oh, expand. Wait, where? What are you asking? Which one?
5.3, that's what we're on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it says the last part of that is and expand resources for licensees and individuals pursuing a mental health career. That seems like a lot. And one, I think that's my first kind of comment is updating the board's website and outreach materials to increase clarity probably should be its own. But then my follow-up question is, what does the second part of that sentence mean?
I think that got.
5.2 and 5.3 are almost identical.
Yeah.
Yeah, something's, for the website one, we were strictly, it was, I think for the website one, it was really looking at, so I've got clarify and expand resources was the end, update the board's website and outreach materials to increase and expand resources. And then when I'm looking at additional one,
But what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to expand resources?
oh, actually, yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, update the board's website and outreach materials to, I guess it was talking about expanding the resources on the web.
So like the information on the web?
Information on the web.
Okay, because that to me sounds confusing. 'cause
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying that is if you look at some of the feedback here, they're talking, common feedback is resources, financial resources, scholarship
yeah,
resources,
okay.
paid resources. So I think if that's the intent of that, it should be specifically.
Maybe update the board's website, including expanding available materials on the web, something to the effect of, okay, I see what you're saying. Can we,
It sounds like what you're saying is expand the information provided.
Yeah.
basically, it's expand the information on the website and redesign the website, yeah. Expand the information.
And that's on 5.2, correct?
No.
Oh, on
that's
5.3.
five
Okay.
Point. Now I'm like. So,
Those two feel, they're redundant.
So expand the resources for on the website.
I think we might be, yeah, we're missing. So our 5.2, the 5.2 that we should have up there is build upon the outreach efforts and initiatives of organizations and agencies to reach students in underserved areas. So
I don't know how that got missed because I have your notes here and I don't,
notes?
I see underserved communities on here. So, okay. Okay, so we have build upon outreach efforts and initiatives of organizations and agencies to reach students in underserved communities and encourage entry into the mental health profession. And that is addressing people pursuing the career.
Correct. It's out of these outreach and education goals are ones that we have developed out of the outreach and education committee we were talking about. That one specifically is looking at because there's not a concern, but we see there's an opportunity to educate people about the pathway and try to bring out more outreach to underserved areas or people that basically underserved areas and trying to gain people or encourage them to enter the profession. At the same time, we realize that that's a big effort, which once again it would be a lot of resources to go out and to do all those presentations. So our goal here was to look for ways to partner like HCI and partner with them and either assist them in their promotion or develop materials that they can use for promotion. So that's kind of that. That was 5.2 I have on
Okay.
here.
And then 5.3, I think part of it also is because the numbering got changed. Let's see.
Sorry, that was me.
No,
probably.
you're good. Okay. And then 5.3, update the board's website and outreach materials to increase clarity and expand resources. So it sounds like they got flipped in here.
Okay. So then is that update the board's website, update the board's website? I mean, almost it's two, and then increase information. I don't know how to, what was the increase in expand information? Oh, update the board's website to include expansion of informational material and organization or something.
How about
You got it.
expand the hold on, I need to think. Expand the information on the board's website. Just
I think I do want to get a component in there of where we're actually updating the whole organization. So, like a revamp.
We have an and here and get rid of expand resources.
We can craft that because that's pretty. I think we've got.
because definitely the mental health career part is going to be deleted from this one because we cover that in 5.2.
Green arrow.
I had a question. There was some discussion about reaching to areas that were with at risk, or maybe I can't remember what you guys said. Where did that go?
Where? What kind of areas?
I was thinking that comment that was made about like basically, so this particular one is focusing on people getting licensed, people pursuing a mental health, and then I thought there was going to be an additional maybe.
It's not on. Oh, it's 5.2.
Okay.
And that was trying to find clever way. I mean, trying to find ways to limited resources, high impact to try to reach out to those areas.
Thanks.
You may have mentioned this, but are these objectives listed in order of priority or are they all of equal weight?
What?
I mean, I don't see them as listed in priority. No.
We could reorder them when it comes to the finalized copy that you review and approve. And then you can, decide then. But this is more just as they came up during the discussion with staff.
Just clarifying on this as well, though, is the update and the materials or the information increase clarity only for licensees? Or should it also be for licensees, applicants, and consumers? Because that website does address all three of those markets.
Yeah. I mean,
Do we want to say stakeholders or list them all three out? Okay.
We kind of use stakeholders as a different phrase around here sometimes. So
yeah, I think I'm basic applicants, licensees, and consumers.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, we'll just at the end.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, 5.4, I don't think we had any changes to this one.
And it may look similar. What we're focusing on here is the part doing like we currently do with the school outreach and visiting schools, whether virtually or in person, to provide them more information, a lot about the application process, the licensure pathway, and one that we've done a couple times. I'd like to expand on is about law and ethics in a perspective on how the board goes through the process. So.
And I apologize, we did have one suggestion, which was changing obligations of practitioners to just requirements for plain language purposes. Getting thumbs up.
I'm wondering if on this one, I know you've done these different presentations, but do you have anything that's recorded that can be like sent to them and so that they could distribute?
That would actually, we have that, like one of the task items that we'll put under here is looking at, one of the things that I want to focus on here is getting on a regular basis of we have the presentations, you've seen one, you know, making regular updates to those presentations, working on, being able for a classroom to be able to use a presentation and making sure it's, you know, worthy of a good presentation. So kind of making sure that we have presentations that are available to schools that are good.
Yeah, I think that would be good, especially for the universities that have a specialty in mental health.
Mhm.
They could show it to the classroom.
And you've like with law and ethics, I know you've talked a lot about that, and I think it's always a good. I think they like when the board comes in and talks about that kind of the process. So looking at making really publishable videos, I guess, was part of that.
Okay. And then lastly, 5.5, develop strategies to reach the public and increase awareness of their rights as mental health consumers. We did have just a small suggestion, which is to develop a communication plan to increase public awareness of their mental health rights as consumers. There's just a small tweak there.
Steve,
Sounds
can you
good.
just share, I'm sorry, maybe just trying to understand a bit more what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is kind of, did we talk about that online or was that offline? About kind of currently we have out there for consumers, you know, when choosing a therapist is one of our publications, and therapy doesn't include sex. But finding ways to kind of broadcast either those materials or, you know, their understanding that the board is here in case you have concerns about a therapist, if that makes sense. And so I think putting in there their rights as a mental health consumer is maybe definitely updating some of our material, or then putting additional material out there that we can, if somebody is concerned, they get to our website, because we're actually with AI now, it will probably lead them right to our place, so that they have the information there to possibly looking into what your therapist shouldn't be doing, or what, you know, we do already have a publication, but updating that. So that's what I'm kind of looking at, making sure they understand their rights as a patient, to the effect, and what they, you know, what are the things that not necessarily the board, but what would you consider something that you might question is being done in your, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And as I'm sitting here thinking more and more actually about what I was mentioning with providers supposed to be providing information to consumers in mental health treatment, how to file a complaint with the board. Perhaps that fits somewhere, but as I'm thinking about it, I am really curious, how do we know as a board that if providers are compliant with that legal requirement or not? Just curious. I mean, and maybe I'm way outside the scope of what we're trying to accomplish, but I do wonder, maybe as a back thought, how that has there been any thought to that in terms of it. Maybe it's better under enforcement. But anyway, I was just trying to better understand, or can that be part of this communication plan that as well, and that could be a specific task item, I'm sure,
Mhm.
to inform them of that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where my somewhat addressing that. It's knowing if the therapist or the practitioner is doing the right thing is tough to know. At the same time, the more knowledge that a consumer has, the more knowledgeable they'd be to raise a red flag and be able to report to us or complain to us. So, I when I look at this, I kind of there's a lot of other. It's difficult for our board, but some of the other boards have like ad campaigns that they do every year. Good example is the Barber and Cosmo. They do a thing for sandal. I always get impressed by it. It's to talk about your pedicures, and they have like an ad campaign that they do every season. They bring it up to try to get that out there. I'm not sure how we could do anything that looks like that, but something to really kind of get more consumers understanding that we're here as a board to help protect you.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of my question is, I know that those are going to be action steps, but I'm just generally
Yeah.
curious, like, what does that really mean? Yeah.
I think it strengthens. At least if we don't know if they're it kind of gives me the good feeling of maybe it's kind of. I think in my view, it strengthens the consumer protection or enforcement process. If somebody knows the law, then they might be able to understand, when to complain. So,
Can we add section 2, 5.5? After the words rights, can you add and protections?
Rights
So-
and protections as consumers?
No, no. First line, reach the public and increase awareness of their rights and protections.
Oh,
There it is, right there.
Okay. And then instead of strategies, just change that back to communication plan.
No, don't touch anything else.
Oh.
I just wanted to emphasize its rights and protections.
Okay, I'll jump in here. Here's some food for thought based on what I'm hearing. So I don't know where this might fit in. So I'm going to use the word stakeholder, but that is to be inclusive, to include all of these audiences that we're mentioning and all of these, 5.1 through 5.5. Sorry. And it goes to like creating or establishing and implement. Okay, we have to put the implementation there. A process for stakeholder feedback. I think, Steve, you do this intuitively at our meetings because you're out there doing the outreach and recruitment with, the various stakeholders and agencies. So we're hearing it from you, but I'm wondering if we can have a formalized way of creating a loop, if you will, when we get the feedback from, our stakeholders that, are consistently here with us in the audience, and those that are not, right? That we're not aware of. They're giving us their feedback. I'm thinking of Ben, for example. Consistent, continuous, great feedback. And he doesn't know, like, where that's falling sometimes. They're able to ask a question, but we don't hear the response. So you're providing that. But is there a way for it to come back not only to the board, but to the stakeholders, the educators, the all of these people that we're mentioning, that we're working with, right? So to create some kind of process that captures the feedback that they're giving us, right? And so that they can know how that impacts or influences board policy, regulations, or whatever it is, that it's just not falling, you're just floating out in the air or falling on deaf ears. But, and also giving that back to them, letting them know maybe what we've done with their feedback. We've heard you, we heard what you had to say, and this is how it has move forward developing an AI subcommittee or something like that. But am I making any sense? But I don't know where that, but it's task driven as well. I think it could fit in anywhere here.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm like at the same time trying to realistically look at the process for that. Do you have a suggestion?
I was just gonna say that I think that might be, it feels like a task that might go under the strategies or communication plan, whatever verbiage we decide on, for this task is to create a method and for, to get feedback from your stakeholders, whether it be a survey or an open forum. But
Well, I think one thing Dr. Walker was saying is that we should somehow or other summarize here someplace that we will continue to work on reaching California consumers to inform them about all their rights concerning mental health, because it is a big problem and we are thinking about it all the time. And it's hard to come up with real hard solutions.
And you know what, Steve? I'm thinking we can embed it in something that we're already doing, maybe in our newsletter, in your report out to the board. You can mention from whatever particular audience provided input or feedback to us, like with the national exam or something like that. But just so that we're more transparent and that it's just a two-way conversation.
I think I got some ideas.
So just something.
I think I got some ideas, and actually, maybe that's something not like for an actual objective, but something I can bring in the outreach part of it. One of the tasks we can look at. I got some ideas. I think talk to you afterwards. about.
Agreed. Let's work on it. Thank you.
Sarah, you were right. Can you also add protections after that? Develop a communication plan sentence.
okay,
You were correct.
okay. Okay, perfect. All right. Oh, they want that one, the one that you bolded. Okay, sounds like we're good to move on. I just want to double check that if there were any other topics that you felt needed to be included in outreach and education. Yeah, go ahead.
For me, I'm just stuck on the word stakeholders, although I think it's inherent in the audiences that we're being very specific, but it's lingo, it's language, but just for the record, I'm just putting that out there. Just making sure that we, are touching on that.
All right, if no other board comment on this, we can move on to public comment for this goal area.
Okay, looking for public comment on goal number 5 in the room. Seeing none. Moderator, is there any public comment online?
All right, WebEx, time to raise a hand on goal area 5. If you'd like to make a comment, tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. And I think it's time for a little bio break for everybody. So we'll go ahead and take the next 14 minutes. Give everybody a little time to stretch their legs a bit.
It'll be 5 o'clock.
Exactly. We're coming back at 4 o'clock. Okay, thank you. Welcome back to continuing with item 6, our strategic planning session, and we'll turn it back over to you guys for goal area number 6.
Thank you so much. So goal area 6 is legislation and regulation. And you can see the definition there. And the summary is on pages 28 through 33 of the environmental scan. And again, we have a summary of weaknesses from the environmental scan as well as from the Sunset Review report. And then for the first one, we have a question. Is it possible for the board to update and modernize statutes, or is that not something the board has the authority to do?
Oh, I get what you're saying. We can
I know you can
propose,
do
we
that.
can propose.
Right.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so should it be review?
Review and
propose?
propose legislation yeah, propose legislative amendments to something to that effect.
Okay.
To some
I have
effect.
a question in general on these. I feel like these 3 objectives are really broad, and don't really provide a lot of sort of meat behind them. And I know we're going to have an action plan along with it, but I feel like this doesn't tell me that much. And I think we're also missing some outreach and communication elements that came out of the environmental scan, because there are, oh, you want me to stop?
No, you're good. I guess raising my hand, like I got something to add to that.
Okay, yeah, just that we have quite a few sort of unchecked things in the environmental scan. If so, I think those of us that are, I think the board's always been very complimentary of our legislative and regulatory staff. They're super on the ball. They, keep us in line. But it seems like maybe we're not really communicating that out very well. That seems to be a gap that came back in the environmental scan. So we're not really sharing, because I do think the board is proactive in certain areas about cleaning up legislation, making sure there's parity between the license types. And we've done a lot of sort of proactive things to, to make sure that everything makes sense and everything's aligned. But maybe where we're missing is sharing that. And also in response to the legislative and regulatory processes are slow. It's confusing. A lot of that is sort of out of our control, but what can we communicate about that so that people have a better understanding of what the legislative process looks like? It is slow. That it on purpose. So, because we need to vet ideas and have conversations about them before they become law. So, I just feel like there's just a lot of meat missing here on my end, but.
So, and I want to say this area is not the most interesting or it's difficult to talk to someone with a lot of excitement or make it palatable about, regulatory law. But I will say that our legislative analysis is really, really outstanding. I mean, I have absolutely nothing bad to say about her. So yeah, I think we also need to communicate that. The other thing I think I really want to address in this is, and I want to jump into this hole because I think it needs to be a proposed objective, is to evaluate what we are doing under the uniform standards regarding substance abuse, healing arts licensees, because that's a continuing concern that's brought up to the board every single time we have a probationee. The probationee says, either we are too punitive, or it's not equitably enforced, or the sentence that we are giving is so fiscally dramatically onerous that it's interfering with their healing. So I would join in Chair Strack's comments. And also, I think we need to take a look at analyzing what proposed legislation can be done to Senate Bill 1441. And that's a big ask.
Sorry, what the Senate bill
1441.
1441. Thank you.
Also called the Ridley-Thomas Act, also called the Uniform Standards Regarding Substance Abuse Healing Arts Licensees.
That's the attorney on the board.
All right, so we have the issue topic, the why address it, desired outcome.
More.
There's also stakeholder, sorry, do you want to?
No, go ahead.
There's also stakeholder comments specifically about the need for policies and regulations to
Okay.
protect marginalized communities.
Okay.
Pretty extensive comments about LGBTQ clients specifically. And I don't see that being captured in these objectives as written. Perhaps that's captured by Member Sovek's at goal number 7, but short of an additional goal, I think we need to be speaking to what specific statements the board can be making to be proactively protecting communities under threat.
Okay. And do we want to finish the objective above, the desired outcome for evaluating the uniform standards?
And I just add the issue topic for proposed for changes.
Okay.
And I guess my question is, does the 6.3 capture the feedback regarding license portability? My assumption without, I think it's what it was talking about, license portability. My assumption would be something along the lines of compacts. That would be my guess. Is that what 6.3 captures?
Yeah, I can tell you under that 6.3, oh, hold on. It would be some of the tasks we're looking at is definitely continuing looking at the compacts and looking at that. And then the psychedelic medically assisted therapy. How to get that in there. And other, what was the other one we're talking about too? But this various other items that we want to look at and should be keeping track of. So and I do appreciate that, like the more clear objectives, and it's, you know, it's the board's decision. Like with the one mentioned with the Uniform Standards Act, I mean, that's something we could fit under the task items. But whether you want to make it specific, I know, you know, Roseanne has her checkbox. We had a list that there's a bunch of things that we were looking at. And this is a hard kind of legislation, and the regulation really is a component spread out amongst the whole strategic plan. But it is good. I mean, if we want to make specifics, I would encourage that. Or if you're happy, if we put those in task items in that.
I would even say I think it'd be fine if they were task items. They could be big enough to warrant their own objective, but in my read of these 3 objectives is it's very reactive. So we're just reviewing and updating what's already there. We're just reviewing and updating what's already there. And then we're just kind of looking around. And then if there's a need to kind of clarify or, you know, then we implement things that are happening elsewhere. And I don't think that's reflective of the program that we're actually doing. It's a much more proactive thing, but these objectives to me read very reactive and very like status quo, which I don't think reflects what we're actually doing. So I just think, because even if we're going to do a uniform standards review or the testing, the AMFTRB exam, and I never sure if I get those letters all in the right order, but that involves both legislation and regulatory impacts. And so if we're, you know, do we need to call out testing as having, you know, regulatory and legislative impacts? Uniform standards review could be part of an objective that is a little more sort of forward looking. And again, kind of circling back to, we have been very proactive about trying to standardize the language in each of the license types and make those, have parity there. But none of that proactive work shows up here in these objectives.
And Sarah has typed out some suggestions for 6.1 if you want to be more specific, like pursue regulation to address the use of artificial intelligence in therapy, pursue legislation to address use of psychedelic assisted therapy. So if you want to be more specific in your objectives, you do that.
Yeah, I think those things have come up a lot. And so, yeah, what are we, and I imagine the answer is yes, but if we were showing if there's legislation to regulate AI therapy, I don't know where we would even put that as an action item or a task within the current objective structure.
Yeah, and then just as a background, when we were looking at the objectives, like the tasks that we have for the first one, for the review, modernize statutes, clarity, alignment, under those tasks, that includes, well, we already did the statutory, like the license not portability, the license pathway would fit under there. Any of the statutes, any kind of any sort of legislation that we're promote or actually sponsoring would go under there, or ones that we have from past conversations where we've been kind of keeping track of things we need to look at, that would go under there. So there's a long list of, and some of them are minutia, but are things that we want to. And that's where it was kind of like a balance between how do you put, we would have probably about right now 20 objectives in legislation, which is fine, but I think it's with the task level, I think it was easier to monitor to show us the progress on those. That's where we were looking at. And then similar to regulation, it was a list of regulations, that we're working on right now. But yeah, it's true. It doesn't,
There's
yeah.
maybe more action related language that could be in there. It just reads very passive to me right
Okay.
now.
Chair Strack,
Yes.
you could take those three and make them one objective. You could pursue pursue regulation to consolidate licensure pathways, address the use of artificial intelligence in therapy, and address the use of psychedelic assisted therapy. That could just be one big objective.
I agree. I think we should make that number one. I mean, we should be proactive, number one, and we should mention those particular things because we're always asked about them. Substance abuse, AI, medically assisted therapy.
Sure.
I'm not, those. I'm trying to kind of like wrap my head around objective versus task. And so some of these might be task related, but I just think there's got to be more active language.
I mean, that's very.
Or maybe some recognition of some of these subtopics, but I don't want it to be just limited to those, I guess.
And part of it was too to try to capture making those two. The original thought was making those broad with the task items. We can keep track of the actual work that is being done and then present the progress on that. And it's always hard to like where to fit that within the strategic plan. Like we're doing the licensure pathway. Do we fit that into the licensure objectives or the legislative objectives? Since it's a legislative process now. But I mean, there is value to it, like if there's me, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's not a criticism of staff, more of a comment that I don't think this adequately reflects the effort they put into the job. So I want to make sure that the work that they do isn't minimized. And I'm not saying that was the goal of this either. So not making any judgments. Just want to make sure that because I do think we are probably more proactive than it may otherwise appear. And so communicating that, I think, starts with that action being reflected in the strategic plan. So we don't wordsmith stuff here, but just comments for the next draft.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I just want to clarify, for the one that we have here, pursue regulation to consolidate licensure pathways, artificial intelligence, psychedelic assisted therapy. Do we want that as its own specific objective, or is it sounding kind of like we want those as a task under 6.3?
Any thoughts? the
I
board
think
members?
we look brain dead if we don't mention those things. I mean,
Well, it's just
those
how
are
we
the
mention
things that
them.
are on people's
They'll be
minds.
mentioned.
Every
Look.
single mental health commission in the state of California has coordinated substance abuse and mental health commissions, put them together. It's now under one commission. So we look brain dead if we don't mention some of this.
I was going to say it a lot nicer, but
I don't think anybody is saying not to mention them. It's just how we mention them. Do we mention them the objective or as a task?
I say mention it as an objective. It gives a target. It's you know,
Okay, then do you want uniform standards in that list as well?
sure.
I think I would break those up into separate objectives for each one though, just because they are different topics. And I can put a note to break it up into like, pursue regulation for each specific one. Because when it becomes like, you have all these different topics and makes it hard when you get to action plan to track how you're doing on each of those. If you have it as a separate one, it makes it easier for you.
I mean, is there some other way of like capturing that too about, I had something in my head and it's gone, but more about, reviewing current, the language left my head, but I had something brilliant there for a second. But I think looking at, pursuing a legislation to address emerging issues and issues to address historical inequities or
Oh, I
something
like that.
along those lines. I mean, is there a little more proactive, but kind of captures all of that stuff in one objective so we don't end up with like 10 objectives in legislation?
I think board member Huff-
Instead of the word pursuing, what about advising? Because we can only advise, we can't.
I mean, we can pursue, we just don't. Yeah. We have to ask. We could pursuing, we still have to ask.
We can pursue, yeah, that's what we proactively implement regulatory or legislative updates. That's what
Board mem-
long term.
Board member Hoft had his hand up.
My concern with, it seems like some of this is really just like an aesthetic choice to keep it consolidated. My concern with having fewer objectives and focusing on a broader statement of identify, focus on, pursue, whatever, in current trends is that there's no clear target and ultimately no clear accountability on what exactly we determine as a board is a current trend that is worthy of addressing. Do we care about AI? Do we care about, there's attachment A, there's a list of threats that stakeholders are concerned about. They're concerned about AI. They're concerned about the rise of BetterHelp and Rula and Grow and Headway. They're concerned about anti-DEI policies from the federal government. They're concerned about anti-LGBTQ policies from the government. They're concerned about supervision. They're concerned about all of these different things. And these are only the threats that made it to this attachment, right? These are only the issues that rose to the level of summary. And I'm worried that if we stick with a general large scale objective, we really lose the opportunity to have a clearer target to orient us as we move forward.
I guess my question for solid staff then is where is that sort of target setting best addressed? Like if there are multiple things, I I guess what's the difference between target setting within a task and an objective? So I guess that's my question on process, because there are still opportunities to outline all of these issues, but maybe if you have some guidance on where that best occurs.
For these ones specifically, I think calling them out as objectives, at least in my opinion, feels a little bit more appropriate because they don't feel so much like little, task items. They don't feel like steps to a larger objective. They kind of feel like their own individual objectives that you want to complete.
Okay.
And that's my opinion.
No, it matters a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I just had one quick question on the uniform standards one. Would that be reviewing the uniform standards or pursuing some type of change to it? That I was a little unclear on.
I don't think
What was
it's
the intention?
pursue. It's because I don't think it's pursue because we haven't established that we can pursue it yet.
Uh-huh.
I think it's analyze the uniform standards for changes
In a more reasonable,
in a
base-
in a more
more reasonable baseline.
and a more reasonable default sentencing.
Thank you.
All right, so you can have those 4 items as objectives that are listed out, and then reviewing and updating regulations to improve clarity, alignment, and effectiveness to support compliance. That could be just a day-to-day function. That's something that you continuously do. I don't know if you want
I see what you're getting at. Yeah. I
Right.
mean, yeah.
So because you're going to have 4 objectives in the school area, so you could just say that 6.2 is something that you just continuously do, and that's going to be happening regardless of having it in your strategic
Mhm.
plan.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, honestly, with one, we got rid of 1 too. Also. Yeah.
Well, those may not all be regulations, though. The way we might address those.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So we've used the word regulation there. They may not all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If regulations, if pursue legislation and or regulations, because it could either include one or the other or both.
Yeah. Or maybe you guys could.
I think
We
work
can
on the right
wordsmith it. We
language
can
for that.
wordsmith it.
But I don't want to miss the other, because I'm sure these aren't the only priorities, right? Like if we're listing out sort of the specific legislative goals, it's the danger is that those change each year. So how do we capture that? Like there are some goals for the upcoming year with testing and regulation of that.
Well,
How
I
do we
mean,
capture that?
It's a living document what we're looking at here, so it's not adding. We'd have to figure out a process, adding those two, but yeah, I mean, we can. Isn't that true? It is a working document. I mean, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can update your strategic plan at any point. You do just have to,
Go before the
Go-
board. So like.
go in front of the board
yeah.
with the changes and then approve those changes and then repost it to the website.
So honestly, like maybe once a year, we just, if there's stuff that staff is like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely one of our objective that we're working on. Let's get it on here and then present it to the board. Say, hey, this is an added, these are additions to the objectives. And then we can get approval from the board saying, is that okay? So we're not missing anything or if there's new, like you say, new things that come up. Yeah, we would be able to amend that.
Yeah.
Although it could get very lengthy though.
That's why I'm wondering if there's some way to kind of.
I wonder if there's like a generic, like
Right,
I
it-
like the
like I-
pointing out, but then keeping one of the
Be- yeah,
overall
some-
ones, like
Right.
ensure you're maintaining proper regulatory standards or something to the effect of where it captures where the task items, then we can have that list of task items. This is what we're working on beyond, of these 4 here.
Yeah, because these 4 are probably multi-year pursuits.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Whereas like there'll be so there's got to be a way of capturing sort of the stuff that's just happening.
yeah.
John looks like he has some.
So perhaps something along the line, review, support, and propose legislative amendments to improve clarity, alignment, and effectiveness in alignment with board mission statement and vision. Because then as things come up that are under our purview, we'll be able to throw them into that and say, hey, Roseanne, can you actually add this to it now? Can you now add this to it?
Yeah.
Like keeping the other 4 breakouts, I do like the 4 breakouts because I think it applied some real specific direction when we're looking at the legislative and regulation process.
Sure. Should that 6.1 also reference regulations though, not just
Yeah,
legislation?
leg and reg probably.
Okay. And then what do you think about, because we don't always just support things, sometimes we oppose them.
Right.
So.
What about review consider? I don't,
Yeah, or
I consider as a good, I think.
Consider and propose, yeah.
Because that means it'll be brought
Yeah.
to. It's going to be all
And then
6.1.2.3.
Steve, I'm looking at the sunset report review.
Mhm.
Do those legislative cleanup items, are those just cleanup proposals or is that actual new legislation?
The cleanup language, actually, that's already been done.
Okay, so
But yeah,
all-
that
for
was
all
part
of
of it.
these.
Yeah, it was part of the sunset bill. That was the cleanup. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
They're each an objective. Is that the 1, 2, 3, 4 on 6.2?
Yeah, I just,
Okay, yeah.
I made a note for myself to
Okay.
break it up so that, so it'll be 6.2 and then 3 and then 4,
Cool.
and then 6.3 will become 6.5.
And then can we add one about just increasing communication about our work in this area?
Here, you got this one done. Okay.
Um,
To licensees, consumers,
Everyone involved.
stakeholders.
Yeah.
Stakeholders?
Okay.
Yeah, just more of
Please.
how are we highlighting work? How are we highlighting just information about the legislative process? What information about the regulatory
We
process?
could
Why
even
does
provide-
it
we
take
could- Yeah,
long?
we could actually.
Why does it take that long?
I
Does
would.
it just look like
Yeah,
we're taking our time, but there are specified public comment periods and
It
review periods.
give them the walkthrough. I don't know if anybody's explaining the use of stakeholders. Can we use like instead of like licensees, consumers, license, like the whole list?
Yeah.
Because stakeholders is kind of.
I know there's not a good substitute for it.
Yeah, partners,
try. We try.
collaborators, people of interest, no,
Interested parties.
sounds like
interested
that's
entities, interested.
Persons of interest.
Yeah, person of
Okay, so licensees, applicants, consumers, were there any other?
I can add if.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll.
I'll put a note, Steve,
And then-
to add.
Under outreach and education? Like under that
Oh,
entire
what was it?
goal
Yeah, that-
umbrella, or does that belong here?
Sometimes we do suggest moving a particular objective under another goal area. And in this case, it might fit better under outreach and education, but we can put it under legislation and regulations for right now and move it under outreach and education if it fits better there.
We do have references to communication in like goal area 1 and 4 about enhancing communication with consumers and licensees about the complaint process and outcomes. So whether we consolidate all those under, whether we leave them under the issue area or consolidate them under outreach.
As a management purpose, I think having it under like each one, because that really the individuals are going to do developing the material or whatever really like within each of the units would be according to that. So like legislation, yeah, leg reg would be looking at ways to do that. So if it's okay, yeah. Because that outreach, it would be a huge, huge goal. So I make more specific, easier to track. So.
Okay, so keep it in this area. So for the why address it, inform stakeholders, we're just using it for abbreviation on the board's efforts, and then desired outcome, would that be increased transparency?
Increased transparency and, yeah, I mean, engagement. Yeah, actually too.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
Increased engagement and transparency.
Engagement, that's what it was. Thank you.
And then any ideas on how the board can increase that communication and get that communication out?
I got a couple ideas.
Newsletters?
I've already, some of the stuff, doing, one thing we don't necessarily do right now is we have board minutes, but we don't put out maybe a summary of what happened at the board meetings or the committee meetings.
Okay, so meeting minutes published or
not meeting minutes,
summaries?
but summaries of
Summaries.
actions taken, putting that out to the public, creating maybe some outreach materials, little one-page infographics of this is why it takes so long. Stuff like that.
Okay.
So if I could just mention something, it's very difficult to communicate regulatory law because it's such a complex topic. Videos tend to work really well. Infographics, graphical representations, things that are colorful. But otherwise, you're going to have a really long rendition of what regulatory law is and then get to the change that happened. So to the extent that we can use accessible communication or effective communication, regarding this topic, I think it will help a lot. And a really good example, and I hate to use this, is there are a lot of TikTok or social media videos that discuss regulatory and legislative issues, and they're quick, they're fast, they're portrayed in a way that people can understand them, and it gets to the topic very quickly. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm taking from you.
All right, so are we good with the communication objective and ready to move on to the protection of the LGBTQIA 25+ communities?
2+, yeah. I think that was also including other marginalized communities, correct? Okay, I know that one was just specifically called out.
Okay. And then does anyone want to specifically state the why address it?
Because currently access to care for LGBTQ communities is being aggressively attacked.
Okay.
I mean, that would be one reason.
Okay. Maybe access to care under attack.
Access to care is increasingly difficult for marginalized communities.
Okay. Increasingly difficult. And then desired outcome, that'd be greater access to care.
But it's not just access to care that I think is the issue. It's the quality and type of care that they receive.
Okay.
So I don't want us to only focus on access.
Okay. Maybe better quality of
It's
care.
accessible, safe care.
And does anyone have any ideas on how the board can address that issue?
Well, the stakeholders recommend, and I'll just read directly from page 41, the BBS can, quote, provide guidance statements and memorandums regarding topics such as protection of LGBTQ clients.
This one is under, just for anyone's reference, it's under the outreach and education weaknesses in the environmental scan, but we're putting it here just in case anyone got confused. Okay, again, statements. I know in the environmental scan it says specifically students, but do we just want to like say, you know, licensees, applicants? Okay, perfect. I'm going to put stakeholders as an abbreviation for now, but we will spell that out.
Also, maybe include something about directing the legislative analyst to track these bills and bring them to our attention, to be very specific about that. Because there have been a couple of times when there are things I've like said to Roseanne, hey, are you following this? And she's like, did I miss that?
Okay, I lost the question that I had on this.
Oh, one of the goals. Okay.
Would it be bills relating to those topics, or are there specific bills that are out there right now?
Just related to
relating-
those
okay,
topics.
relating
There are,
topics.
yeah, actually. This one.
All right, does that look good to people? Yes? Okay. Did anyone want to suggest any other objective for legislation and regulation?
I do want to acknowledge the concern with life coaches and health coaches. And I'm wondering if there's space here to perhaps coordinate with other agencies about that, Steve, in particular. Or I'm thinking, for example, when HCI came through with the whatever the mental health coaches, that, I mean, there was no part that the BBS was involved in that, but there's, you know, I think real consideration that showed up even in the survey about that. And so maybe broadly, I know that's perhaps outside of our purview, but can there be coordination with other agencies that have already started to walk down this road of certifying coaches?
Yeah, I don't know where that fits though. Yeah.
But would that not fit as, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's
Legislative,
not here. I'm just trying to think.
No, it probably does.
Could that potentially go under licensing
Yeah,
to
maybe.
pursue and explore bringing coaches under the board's purview? Something like that, but more elaborate, written by our star. But that might go under licensing.
Yeah.
Put a note to move it to
Mhm.
licensing.
And what's and just to actually put like the outcome, what would you think, like what would be the?
Well, I think the immediate outcome would be to look at what is the possibility of regulating coaches. I mean, I think the ultimate intent behind the comment is that the threat of coaches encroaching on the work of mental health professionals in an unregulated way,
Mhm.
right? So I think in a perfect world, it would be coaches would be regulated. By who? That would be the question, right? If that's us or someone else, but I think the board would make the most sense, given the role that we serve.
Okay.
And considering that a lot of coaches are marketing their work as therapeutic treatment, then I think that does give us some leeway to pursue bringing them under our umbrella. I mean, we've talked for years about how do we stop it? Well, why don't we actually bring them under the umbrella and bring them into our regulation system?
And I would also add that the terminology used, life coaches or wellness coaches, I think wellness coaches has been the title that HCI adopted and the one that sort of fits in that as well. So coaches in general, I'm thinking.
Said counselors that we're starting to see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let
Coaches in general, is there other places?
G crafting something. Let me see if I can grab
Someone
that
gets their, like,
objective.
sport coaches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Investigate, review. I'm trying to think of the proper
Yeah.
term. I mean, coordinate with, yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe there's a coordination piece with HCI since they're already doing that. And
Yeah, we're, yeah.
Mhm.
we're
But that-
actually,
That could follow under how can the board solve or address, coordinate with other
Yeah,
HCA or other
I think-
organizations.
But I think it's
That one-
broader than HCI though, too, right? Because HCI is only looking at one specific.
Yeah, and I think that other one was for really kind of just really outreach. This one is more kind of looking at the scope of all non-licensed like individuals and what certifications are out there, and trying to, you know, having discussions in the board of, I mean, what's the next step, or what are they, you know, what would we want to pursue?
Perhaps it's even putting out clear communication between the boundaries of coaching and not, I mean, I just think something should be done to address that, because I do agree that is a concern.
That is an outreach part that, I mean, we've talked about, and that's
Yeah.
something that I want to pursue. That's more like of a
But
on the outreach part of it, but like for the bigger scope,
The
it's
bigger
like-
scope would be regulation.
Yeah.
That would be I mean, that would be the ideal outcome.
Okay.
And if we're thinking over 4 years, is that possible? Yeah.
It's a
I don't know.
big goal. Big goal. No, let me, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Okay.
All right, so how do people feel about that objective, adding, just pursuing adding life coaches under the board's purview? Oh, I see a stop, okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think we necessarily want that public. If we put, we would probably hear a lot. I think it's better.
We're live right now. It's
I know.
already-
It's like already live out
Yeah,
there.
it's
already
there.
live out there. No, but I think it requires a lot of, it requires a lot of, not the term investigation, but collaboration, let's say, and really connecting. I mean, we kind of have that connection with the HCI now, so it's establishing more, but then also it's not just the certified wellness coaches. It's like we said, it's the life coaches. So that would take a while to kind of figure out who do we even, I mean, we kind of know the certification agencies and stuff, but what does that look like when we want to move forward? And so it's a bigger than just life coaches. I don't know if the term not non-licensed, I don't like that term either. Paraprofessionals, I don't know if I use that term right. I got to get a good definition of that, but I mean, paraprofessionals might be a term, but there's another term we can use there to kind of broaden that scope. And then with the tasks is we can, life coaching, list them down, and then kind of the steps on what to do to look at that. Because that is
When we did peer, because we looked at peer support.
certified. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can't remember what we did on that, but I thought I remember the term paraprofessional coming up in
That was a pair. I think that's what I have to. That's why I'm not sure that I have to look up the total definition. But from my understanding, this paraprofessional it would include like certified wellness coaches, peer not mentors, peer counselors, community engagement officers, or something like that. Community, yeah. So I think there's a proper term to look at that.
Okay, so maybe the issue topic could just be stated with paraprofessionals, and we can highlight that and look up if that's the best.
Let me
term.
look at to see if that's the best. But I think the concern is there is a, for a better term, hodgepodge and of people providing mental health services, whether it's clinical or not. And it seems to be expanding every day. And so I think, like we talked about outreach, one of the big concerns for me is that people understand who's who and who does what. That's the first step. But then the next step is, it's for HCI, the discussion has been, you have these individual certified wellness coaches that are going through this process. And the goal is to get them into licensure and to encourage them to move forward. But that gap from being a certified wellness coach to becoming licensed can be confusing, because They have to have a certain amount of hours as a certified wellness coach, 1,500 hours. I don't even know if those would transfer over to our group. And then again, it's looking at them as really, I think the certified wellness coach, I think it's 2 or something. You have to have a bachelor's of arts degree. There's a lot of other states that license, bachelor's of arts there. It's kind of like what we did. It's basically would be before our associates. But so there's a lot of different things we can look at. But I think putting that as a broader, and then getting those tasks down to what ones we want to look at, because that would be easier to bring to the board step by step.
Could it be
Make sure.
something more like staying aware of trends versus
I think
having an advocacy piece of it?
I think from our previous discussions with that trends, I think we have. I mean, do we retain that one? I can't see. I mean, I don't know. I personally like it as it's kind of
The
standing out
industry
there.
trends, yeah, we did keep that one.
We did?
And then I do know board member Huft has been waiting to comment.
Yeah, well, I thought that the protest is to get rid of having those under the board's purview, and they wanted to get rid of that. So
Yeah, I
have
thought that-
the issue be paraprofessionals. Okay, that was my understanding.
I mean, if you wanted to rephrase that, I mean, emerging trends in emerging trends in mental health service providers.
ARA professionals.
I mean, that would,
It's not an emerging trend. It's established.
no,
It's an
you guys
established
say emerging
industry. It's an established industry
it is.
that is marketing and advertising in direct conflict with what therapy offers. Okay, and I think we need to be really clear about what I'm suggesting with my thoughts on this is we have coaches, people who've just basically could take an online program for 2 weekends and get a certification. And they're also offering things like EMDR, brain spotting, all of these trauma-based modalities in an unregulated manner. So that's why I think the idea of actually, it's not a trend, it's an industry, that pursuing them, since we can't stop it, find ways to actually bring them into our regulatory atmosphere so that we can do consumer protection for people who are going to people who don't have the type of training that they're advertising they're having.
And to follow up on Mr. Sovek's point, our concern is that people, I mean, this is affecting very vulnerable populations, particularly people in what are called mental health deserts, in the inland and rural portions of California. A person who's talking to a life coach won't necessarily know to go to the board and to ask the board, hey, this person was saying they're doing EMDR or CBT. I think the board should take a look at that, because it's not like they have a mandate to show their license. They're just a person, a life coach. So in that sort of situation, the board can certainly issue a cease and desist order at the very least, from this person practicing therapy. But how would we ever know?
Mhm.
And that's a really important topic that we should be discussing.
It sounds like also another desired outcome would just be better consumer protection.
And then, do you still have, no? Okay.
Did anyone else have anything to add or another objective to add? Are we green, ready to move on? Okay, all right.
1 second while I count, because we added a lot more to this
It's
section.
9,
Yeah,
I think.
okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Oh,
7, 8, 9. You were correct.
the public comment.
Yes, public comment.
All right, we're looking for public comment on goal number 6. In the room, are there any members of the public wishing to comment? Seeing none, moderator, do we have any folks online?
All right, WebEx, now is the time to raise a hand. You can do that by tapping the hand button at the bottom of the screen. And we will call on the only person we have left if they raise their hand. Seeing no requests, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. And thank you to whoever's still hanging on with us. With that, is there anything else you want to do with us today?
I'd
I
like
know,
to say
Oh,
something.
Board Member Sovek brought up the idea of adding an additional goal area, protection for marginalized communities. I do know that we added one objective under Ledge, but I see your head shaking no, it's probably not enough. Is this something that we want to work on today, kind of throw out some ideas, or I know we're kind of hitting that.
Emailed Steve the outline of what I was thinking for it, which I did kind of just workshop a little myself. And I do understand we're all tired and exhausted, but remember there are people who can't leave their homes right now because of some of these things in what I'm wanting to have in this goal. So if everyone's okay, that maybe we could do a little shaping together for even just 10 to 15 minutes to give a really clear direction that the board feels they can support. And then we can let the design happen amongst the people who design these things. Would that be okay?
Yep.
Okay.
I guess with that, the one that we added in Ledge, would it be more appropriate to move that under this or keep it under Ledge? The one that we added about access to care and safe care for those communities.
For my intention, the access to care, this is not necessarily about that. This is about the access to protection and safety.
Okay, we can keep that one under Ledge and then workshop some new ones for this area.
Right.
I have a question for Board Member Stovek. When you talk about safety, safety has come up in a few different contexts in our meetings. We have talked about the board's unwillingness to protect clinicians who work with trans youth, for example, who risk losing their license when their companies require them to engage in dangerous behavior. We've also talked about the lack of safety for a variety of communities that, again, the board has done almost nothing on. Are you talking about a specific type of safety in a specific context?
So if I can share the outline of what I have, I had emailed to Steve. I realized I didn't have your email address. I couldn't send it to you. So I will read slowly.
Sure.
So the goal, as I'm kind of imagining it, is protection and support for marginalized and endangered communities. And then the objectives under it would be systems to protect clinical files from unlawful search and seizure.
One second, I'm gonna merge the cells here because it's getting a little wonky for me. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this supposed to be for the goal area description or an objective?
So the one I just read you, protection support, is the goal area 7.
Okay, so that would be the description for it.
That would be actually what I would call goal number 7.
Okay.
So protection and support for marginalized and endangered communities.
Okay, so yeah, okay, I am following now. Thank you.
Okay. So then
then-
the first objective
Mhm.
would be systems to protect clinical files from unlawful search and seizure.
To be
To protect clinical files from unlawful search and
from
seizure.
unlawful. Thank you.
This actually is more a little bit of your question, which we would then work out. Access for therapists to tools for keeping clients safe. I do know some clinicians who currently are creating one sheets for their clients to hand out, say, if this happens, this is your response, getting stuff off of well-recognized organizations to provide that. 3 would be control of confidential records in online platforms, electronic health records.
Online platforms and
They're called EHRs. That's why I was adding that on. So control of confidential records in online platforms, comma, EHRs, or electronic health records,
Okay.
if that makes it clear. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. No, don't fix that for me.
You're so brave to type in front of us.
I know.
And then guidelines for clinicians working with marginalized and endangered communities. And those are just the rough versions of it. So I am open to myriad amounts of feedback or wherever you all feel this is the best to take it for right now.
I think the only thing, at least from me, just looking at it right now, is just adding some sort of action to them, such as like implement systems or pursue or research or something like that, just because
Are you
right
going
now
to turn them into SMART goals?
yeah. So that's the thing that I see right now, just kind of looking at them. But open to feedback from anyone else.
I just want to note that some of these are already being done by our professional organizations and affinity organizations and orgs in other states. When I talk to colleagues in other states, they already have guidance of best practices, not discussing menstruation or miscarriages with clients, right? Not talking about gender pronouns when their clients are queer. So these things are not hard to do. They already exist, and I strongly support all four of these objectives in the goal. I think that this is direly needed.
So then, Steve, maybe a way to fix up 4 a little bit is coordinate with other state boards. I mean, that might be one way to look, or is that an action item?
No, I mean, that would be for the, yeah, that would be an action item. And that's, yeah, that one, I think that guidelines for clinical action items, well, there are a couple action items before, including in that. I would appreciate some like action items for the, some of those I know, some like action items.
I'll give
for
an
the-
example.
For the, like for the first one.
Yeah.
What would we do as like, what
So,
would we do?
and maybe Kelly can speak to this as well, but like providing resources to school-based therapists distinguishing an administrative versus a judicial ICE warrant would be helpful. When I talk to school-based therapists, they are unclear under what circumstances they can and cannot engage with ICE when ICE are on campus and trying to get information about their clients. This is a pretty easy thing to be telling therapists, and a memo from the board would help that, right? That's a clear action item that would provide some safety for these clients.
Sure, and Steve, here's a very easy action item. Provide guidance to any of our clinicians on what to do if ICE comes to the door and asks for their clinical files. Just a very simple memo, one pager. What is my ethical obligation or regulatory obligation if ICE comes to my office and says, hey, I would like this person's clinical file. Here is an administrative warrant as opposed to a judicial warrant. Or if just an ICE agent comes to the door and says, hey, can I talk to you about this person? I'm a law enforcement officer under HIPAA. This is an exception. It's a real law enforcement emergency. What does a clinician do in that sort of situation under our regulations, under California law? And that's something that's very easily communicatable because the answer is already there. You know, and what's the difference between an administrative warrant and a judicial warrant? These are very simple answers that the BBS can provide to our clinicians. And they're consistent with our public protection because California is a sanctuary state. Access to care and tools to keep clients safe. What are, providing clinicians, what are the resources that you need to go to if you're a clinician working inside a marginalized community? Where do you go? How do you, what sort of legal resources, where do I direct my clients to, all this sort of stuff that BBS can provide to the population of licensees and registrants and associates. And it's all consistent with our mandate, which is ultimately public protection. Oh, and then the control of confidential records, online platforms, and EHR, that really does bother me because there are some clinicians who work with these mass therapist platforms like Grow Therapy and other online platforms. And not only are the confidential records contained in their office, but it's also contained inside the online platform itself. What obligation does a clinician have to safeguard their client's records if ICE comes to their door and says, hey, I'd like your client's records, here's my administrative warrant? Does a clinician have to take reasonable measures to ensure their client's safety? Do they have to notify their client if they received a notice? You know, these sort of things that kind of get into these nitty-gritty regulatory questions, but things that clinicians have to know because apparently this is the world we live in now.
And just to understand, Steve, we know that there are 2 of the EHR major massive programs that are allowing Customs and Border Patrol and ICE to go into the confidential records. And because of some small little caveats they put in their confidentiality stuff, it's able to happen, but a lot of clinicians are not aware of this. So we do know it is happening. So this is just about a lot of one sheets, a lot of informing. I think clinicians are going out there doing their best. My little consultation group, we've coordinated, we've created a one sheet that we can hand to a client and say, if ICE approaches you, okay? And that's just us being who we are. But I do think it behooves the board to maybe make this a larger thing because this is not going away tomorrow. And so I think having it on our strategic plan, looking at it not just through the current times, but knowing that this may play out for many, many years to come is why I think it's important to have it on our strategic plan.
And lastly, sorry, one thing we can do, which is really, really important, is that we can communicate our support. The board can for marginalized communities right now. That's really important, and I think we should do it.
All right. So I took some of those notes, especially for like the action items. So we have those. And that puts us at 4 here. Did we have any other comments that we want for this new goal area? No? All right. In that case, do we want to move to public comment on this one?
And
for our-
actually, one more
simply-
thing.
Yeah.
Understanding that my proposals are based from a raw place, not an administrative place. So I do trust that you will shape them.
Yes, they're not going to look
into
exactly like this.
objectives that we can actually move through the system, but I would like to encourage you to keep the strength behind them
Mhm.
and not to make them passive.
I will try my best.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you. Looking to our vast in-house audience for comments. Seeing none. Moderator, do we have anybody still left with us online to see if they want to comment?
No one left online.
Okay. All right, that closes comment on goal 7. Thank you.
Is it okay if I say something? No, I just really want to acknowledge and thank this board for your emphasis around DEIA. I'm involved with a lot of organizations that talk about it. We talk about intention, but the intention is really not there. So I know it's been hard. I know it's been try to figure out where it can fit, how we can do it. But I just really greatly appreciate the energy behind it, the emphasis behind it, the intentionality, not letting it go. So I just want to commend all of you and acknowledge you, and myself too, but it's really important to acknowledge it because I'm in a lot of spaces and I do not hear people push like this. So it's important that our public hears that we're doing it and we care about it. it's going to the staff and to the administrator to know that no matter what, this is important to this board. It's going to be something that's going to be coming back and you're going to be held accountable. So I just want to acknowledge that and the hard work of it and just, I'm getting a little teary, but just say thank you. And it's important.
All right. I have a few couple more slides and I will try to be quick with these. So we have 39 objectives now. Hopefully I did my calculations correct. When working with staff, we thought maybe 4 years to complete all these objectives. We did drastically increase the amount of objectives. So at this point, we will kind of decide, and we can always change it when you get to the approval stage, if 4 years seems feasible for staff to complete all these objectives. Yeah, 5. Okay, 4 seems
I
good.
want to keep it on a 4-year
Okay.
cycle if it's okay with everyone.
I see a raised hand from Ms. Rube.
I would just say it's not necessarily like all the way. I would imagine they're going to be completed along the way. So it's not necessarily all going to be completed at 4 years. So.
Yeah. All right. So this is not correct. That was from the pre-strategic planning session. The next steps is I will draft the strategic plan. And then it goes through a couple levels of review before I send it back over to Steve. But I may work a little bit more with you with some of those objectives that we have. And then you'll get that finalized strategic plan before your next board meeting. And at that point, you will review it. You can strike it with as much red as you want. And make amendments to it and hopefully approve and adopt your strategic plan at that next meeting. And we kind of did talk a little bit extensively about action planning, where once that plan is approved, we work with staff to say, okay, these are all the steps we need to do. And Steve came up with a bunch of tasks already. So I think that's going to go really fast. But we'll put those into that tracker and then deliver that tracker to the board to kind of track the progress of the strategic plan. Thank you all. Once again, I'm Sarah Urani and yep. And thank you.
No, thank you all for the help. Thank you. It's been great. We appreciate it.
I think you.
I'm going to hit save on this.
Oh yeah, please don't. God, don't.
All right, with that, we're close out the meeting or did we already close it? Okay. Okay, we're gonna close out the meeting. We will adjourn until 8:30 tomorrow morning in this very same place.